A very warm welcome to everyone for attending the first Malaysia Buildtech Asia Forum. My name is Lynn and I'm Constellar's country representative here in Malaysia. Buildtech Asia has been around for 11 editions. This forum is its first in Malaysia and we are happy to bring it to you with an esteemed lineup of speakers and panelists. The theme, Sustainable and Innovative Technology in Malaysia Built Sector, was carefully curated to reflect the ever-changing Malaysian built environment, the use of technologies and its implementation. With the need to become more sustainable and the importance of smart cities in the next generation of living, we are extremely honored to have Mr. Muhammad Farabi bin Muhammad Yusof, Head of Smart City, Plan Malaysia, to headline our keynote opening session. Just some housekeeping rules. For any questions posed, please use the Q&A button that we can find at the bottom of your screen. We shall try and address as many questions as we can with the speakers who are here already. Before we commence with today's proceedings, let's see what Buildtech Asia has in store for us this March 2022. After that, let's hear from Darren, the lead in Buildtech Asia, on what you can anticipate.
Thank you so much, Maggie. And welcome everyone for taking time to this Buildtech Asia Regional Roadshow in Malaysia. I would like to share more about the main event of Buildtech Asia. This will be happening this year from 15 to 17 of March in Singapore at the Singapore Expo. This year's edition will be special as it will be the first time that Buildtech Asia will be taking on a hybrid format. Hybrid in the sense that there will be a physical exhibition and conference on site and an event center that will host and mirror the event virtually. Buildtech Asia is a B2B trade event for the building and construction technology, with the objective to help organizations to accelerate the adoption of digitalized solutions and smart technology as part of the Industrial Transformation Roadmap. This year's event will be our 11th edition and will bring together regional professionals from This event will be our 11th edition and will be bringing together regional professionals from the built environment industry to convene and to facilitate knowledge and insights that will help start, scale, and sustain the transformation journey.
As we all know, the global pandemic has greatly impacted the construction industry, especially in the last 2 years where we saw countries introducing lockdowns and restrictions, which has caused several disruptions that resulted in severe construction delays. Construction companies are facing mounting challenges from acute labor shortage to skyrocketing material costs. This resulted in firms turning to technological adoptions to curb some of these short-term problems. The building and construction industry will see a shift towards digitalization and automation. This will address long-term costs and margins, with safety being one of the major challenges for the industry. Digitalization will be driven by technologies such as AI, five-dimensional BIM solutions, AR, VR, and electrification powered by 5G speed connectivity. Organizations will also have to adapt a better workforce management strategy. The workforce must be equipped with knowledge and skills to accommodate such urbanization. Buildtech Asia will be the platform to facilitate the transformation for the built environment sector, with 3 full days of curated content and programs to help companies and the workforce to understand the benefit of new technology, especially on where to start, how to scale, and how to sustain their transformation efforts regardless of size, profile, and maturity. Buildtech Asia is designed to facilitate business growth and fostering of new partnerships. With all this in place, once again, I would like to invite you to the 11th edition of Buildtech Asia in March this year. You may want to mark down your calendar right now, 15 to 17 of March. Whether physically or digitally, I look forward to receiving you. Thank you, and back to you, Lailin.
Thank you, Darren. Now, that is something definitely to look forward to. And make sure you save the date, as Darren has mentioned, to register yourself to get to Buildtech Asia 2022 this March. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Muhammad Farabi Yusuf bin Muhammad Yusuf, the head of Smart City Unit at Plan Malaysia. He has special interests in digitalization, digital infrastructure planning, smart city, urban mobility, spatial analysis, and big data analytics. He was a part of the 9th session of the World Urban Forum that was held in Kuala Lumpur back in 2018 during his tenure with Urbanist Malaysia, and also was part of the team that formulated the first National Urbanization Policy and National Physical Plan. He has a certificate in management for smart cities infrastructure from École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne and a graduate from University of Technology of Malaysia with a bachelor's and diploma in urban and regional planning. He is also a graduate member of both the Malaysia Board of Technologies and Malaysia Board of Town Planners. Mr. Muhammad Farabi will share Plan Malaysia's grand plan in today's first keynote addressing Malaysia's sustainable plans in its built environment. Welcome, Mr. Muhammad Farabi.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon to distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to be able to deliver a presentation in this event. My name again, as introduced earlier, my name is Farabi Yusuf, Head of Smart City in Plan Malaysia. So basically, Plan Malaysia is an agency under the Ministry of Housing and Local Government. Our old name is actually Federal Department of Town and Country Planning, but now being rebranded as a Plan Malaysia. So today I will be presenting on the topic of towards a sustainable urban future in Malaysia built environment. Next, please. Okay, so my presentation will cover these three aspects as shown on screen. Okay, next. Okay, before we go to the more serious discussion, I would like to recap some of the Malaysian urbanization trend. So Malaysia will experience the rapid growth of urban population and urbanization. The National Physical Plan, the fourth National Physical Plan, has projected that about 77% of the Malaysian population will reside in cities by 2020 and expected to increase about 85% in 2040. So this rapid urbanization growth require a demanding imperative of sustainable development and better livability. The expansion of cities faces a variety of challenges. So this problem arising from rapid urbanization indicates a loss of basic functionalities to be a livable place. Next, please. Okay, so in the fourth National Physical Plan have identified a few key urban challenges. I think this is, if you look to the other region as well, I think basically other countries are facing the same problem. So we have a problem in increase in solid waste, energy consumption, water usage, non-revenue water, NRW. We are going to an aging nation as well. They have issues now. I think in the pandemic, COVID-19 is something a big issues. And I think the most recently, if you have noticed, for the participant from outside of Malaysia, we have been affected by the flood. So this flood issue have affected some of the state in Malaysia. So these are the common urbanization issues that we are facing in Malaysia. Okay, next. So having said that, the Ministry of Housing and Local Government have launched the program called Livable Malaysia to make sure that urban dwellers will be able to live in a better environment. So our minister have eager to lead this initiative led by the Ministry of Housing and Local Government. Okay, next. The ministry have taken a proactive measures by introducing the Smart City Framework back in 2019. It is a national level framework that serves as a guide and reference to local authorities as a city managers, state government, federal ministry and department, industry players, academicians and other stakeholders in planning and developing smart cities in Malaysia holistically and in line with the current development. So we have this framework as a textbook we call as a textbook for the smart city in Malaysia. Okay, next please. Okay, so what is smart city? So probably we have a various background here. Probably I should share the definition of a smart city. So city that use ICT and technological advancement to address urban issues, including to improve quality of life, promote economic growth, develop sustainability and safe environment, and encourage efficient urban management practices. So these are basically the definition that have been accepted in Malaysia. Next, please. Okay, so smart city is a very broad area and focus area. So the comprehensive smart city development process encompasses 4 unified components, which is consumer, services, data, and digital infrastructure. Smart city is a unique approach in managing cities. What we see around us is a horizontal development. However, smart city work vertically as well. From the top level with the people-centric concept, the people will decide on what kind of services and facilities that needed in the smart city. It will then generate to the second level tier, which is the kind of services that have been provided. So we have a lot of services that are being offered here in terms of the transportation, electricity, water supply, telecommunication, and a lot of other services as well. So the third level is the data being generated from the smart city initiative. So smart city, the key point for me as a urban planners is actually the data. The data is a wealth. So this data is something that we need to manage. So the last level is definitely smart city couldn't function to the optimum level without the good digital infrastructure. So infrastructure is to ensure the whole system is work. Okay, next. So big data. This is my favorite topic. Big data is often discussed in the context of international development and improving the urban environment. But what exactly is big data? How can we be used? And it is a fundamental component of the smart city. Big data actually play an important role in a smart city. Cities can process data from IoT services, devices and sensors to recognize pattern and needs. Smart city use IoT devices such as connected sensor, lights, metering to collect and analyze data. So the cities then use this data to improve infrastructure, public utilities and services, and many more. Okay, next. Okay, having said that, the biggest question mark is how we measure smartness of a city. So at the global level, ISO, International Standard Organization, have published more than 22,000 international standards and related documents that represent globally recognized guidelines and framework based on international collaboration. So built around consensus, this provides a solid base on which innovation can thrive and are essential tool to help government, industry and consumer contribute to the achievement of every SDG. So if you look to the screen, we know that we have the 17 SDG. A lot of standards have been produced globally to tackle every angle of urbanization, and so much so to the 11 SDG, which is sustainable cities and communities. Okay, next. So, as part of the implementation strategy under the Malaysian Smart City Framework, the Ministry of Housing and Local Government through Plan Malaysia have introduced the Malaysian Standard on Smart City Indicators to measure the smartness of the city and to establish a standard that recognizes a smart city status which is globally accepted and recognized. So Plan Malaysia, my agency, is working together with national standard body, the Department of Standard Malaysia, and other stakeholders to develop Malaysian standard on smart indicators, or now we known as MS ISO 37122 2021 actually, via identical adoption of ISO 37122. So we just launched this somewhere in December last year. Next, please. Okay, so these are the simplified indicators based on the city indicators in ISO 37122. There are 80 indicators actually how to measure the smartness of the city globally and also in Malaysia. Next, please. So these are 80 indicators under the 19 city indicators. So this is how we simplify the things. It's in a more reasonable diagram. So these indicators, the indicators under this standard also highlight on the future built environment. For example, buildings that equipped with the smart water meter and smart energy meter, the road network equipped with the real-time online traffic alert and information, and the provision of garbage bin, a smart garbage bin equipped with the sensors and few others. So these are some of the smart initiatives that could be introduced actually in any developments in the future. Okay, next please. So the future built environment should be equipped with a smart building element. So this is one of the example I took from the smart building under the smart environment that use technology to enable efficient and economical use of resources while creating a safe and comfortable environment for occupant. Okay, smart building may use a wide range of existing technologies and are designed or retrofit in a way that allow for integration of future technological development. Internet of Things, sensors, building management system, artificial intelligence, and augmented reality are among some of the mechanism and robotic that can be used in smart building to control and optimize its performance. So smart building should also have the smart energy meter and smart water meter that have to record and display the consumption for energy and water of building in real time. So this is a very special. For example, for now we can measure our usage, consumption, and so on. But the real-time data is something that are valuable in smart city development. Besides, the development in the future should come with the street lighting managed by the light performance management system that will help to contribute to the higher energy efficiency and also could optimize the use of energy. Next, please. So these are one of the example under the okay, the basic idea behind the green building is to carve out, find techniques and skill to bring down the effect on the environment and human health to a lesser degree, and by promoting the optimal use of renewable energy. Using sunlight through passive solar, active solar, and photovoltaic equipment, and using plants and trees through green roof, rain garden, open space, and reduction of rainwater wastage. So this is very in line with our standard ISO 37122 that emphasis on two elements at the moment. One is the smart green building, the need to have a green building, and to refurbish old building which is unsustainable, and smart street lighting also to refurbish old lighting to a smarter ones. Okay, next please. Smart transportation. This is another issue. A lot of cities are facing these issues as well. Smart transportation and smart city traffic management are revolutionizing how cities approach mobility and emergency response while reducing congestion on city street with sensor, advanced communication technology, automation, and high-speed network. So the smart city indicator standard highlight on a real-time online traffic alerts. This is very important, and information, public transport lines with publicly accessible real-time system, public transport with unified payment system, public parking space with e-payment system, parking space with the real-time availability system, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, charging station, and so on. So this is a kind of technology that we can improve the mobility in the city as well. Next, please. So waste management, this is another area that's facing a lot of cities for now. So smart waste management focus on solving the previously mentioned solid waste management problem using sensors, telemetering, intelligent monitoring systems, and mobile application. The first smart waste management solution is to make the waste collection process more efficient via using the sensors and telemetry. So smart city indicators in this standard as well also highlighted on the waste drop-off center with telemetering, amount of waste used to generate energy. We talk about the WTE, waste to energy, public garbage bin that are sensor enabled, and also city electrical and electronic waste that is being recycled. So these are the elements that being used in the smart city to measure the smartness in terms of the waste management. Okay, I think this is probably the last one. With the adoption of ISO 37122, we see that it is just the beginning of the journey in a smart city. So we see that ISO 37122 can be used in 3 different perspectives. So knowing that our crowd today is more on the come from the construction services as well, I would like to encourage that please use this standard from the strategic viewpoint, that you can use as a tool for smart city project planning at the local level and set the priorities based on the local context. In developing any new development, you can use the 780 indicators as a guidance. So you can choose whatever that are suitable to the local context and uniqueness of the city. So for us at the governance levels, we use this standard in terms of the monitoring aspects. So these indicators can be used to assess the maturity of smart city implementation based on throughout the city in Malaysia. We have more than 200 cities in Malaysia. So and we have about 155 local government that govern the cities for now, and we can use this standard as well to measure the maturity index of a smart city and its implementation. And the last one, we can use this standard as well as a recognition tool. So the standard will be used as evaluation and recognition to measure the smartness of the city. As a conclusion, the development of smart city standards are very important to provide a guide as a strategic planning to all related agencies in Malaysia, especially to deploy advanced technology-based solutions to help combat the worst case impact due to the COVID-19 pandemic or even the climate change by monitoring the health, safety, and living standard of the citizen. So there is an opportunity for us to develop more standard with regards to smart city in the future, especially for our team. We want a people-centric smart city and to accelerate smart city implementation in Malaysia. I would welcome all relevant parties to use this standard as a reference in developing any kind of development and use smart city element as one of the solutions towards a better built environment in the future. With that, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Farabi, for that insightful sharing. I am sure that all of us were able to learn from this very much, and I am sure a lot of you have also asked a lot of interesting questions behind the scenes. So if you do have questions for Mr. Farabi, please do so, or use the Q&A button that's at the bottom. And now, we are very happy to bring you Autodesk Regional Manager for Asia, Mr. William Lau, as he presents on our next keynote, Digital Construction for Better Outcomes with Autodesk Construction Cloud. Mr. Lau comes with an extensive background in the construction industry with at least 20 years experience covering facilities management, home automation, and home automation systems. He is also a digital solutions advocate of solutions for VR, field, and BIM methodology, positioning him to be a perfect fit as Autodesk Construction Solutions Regional Sales Manager. Please put your hands together for Mr. William Lau.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Thank you very much. Yeah, humbled to be here today and very grateful for the invitation. I think without further ado, thanks for the introduction, and I will go into the key topic. I know that today there's a lot of content packed thanks to Buildtech Asia. So I'd like to go to the next slide. A quick introduction of myself. You can connect me with LinkedIn. My LinkedIn QR code is here, and I believe everyone is now in the new norm, need to scan QR code whenever they go anywhere. So with this, I'd like to quickly go into the key topic. Recently, we have done a survey with FMI, and we wanted to share some insights, which is, I think, very important for the construction market, especially during this COVID. Okay, as what we have seen, We have done a survey across 18 countries, 3,916 consultants and contractors, including developers, have come together to give us a survey. And I think what we found is that 14%, the key messaging is 14% of the rework in the construction globally is caused by bad data. And this is going to be very damaging for the whole economy in terms of social responsibility, because all this bad data will eventually result in abortive works. And we go further dive into it, out of this bad data that consists of two parts: missing data and duplicate data. And if you see in APAC, right, we contribute about 20% on average in terms of missing data and duplicate data. But how can we do to prevent this from happening? I think we also found further discussion talking about 35% of time is really wasted on non-optimal activities. People is spending too much time on their paperwork and printing on papers, writing on papers, and it's not able to replicate successfully. And even with BIM technology, there's still 280 billion of rework. And this is caused again by bad data. And what we found is also to 95% of the coordinated work, that coordinated drawings that is already done in the office is not reaching site. That become a big issue, and that cost resulted in 280 billion of rework worldwide. And it's very obvious, right? You can see that everybody is using more than 5 software in one single project. Why? It's a single source of truth. And if you drill further down into details, everyone has our own part to take part, because we use Dropbox, we use Gmail. These are good, but when it comes to an actual project, it's very difficult to trace back which version is the right version. And it leads me to, where is the data? Who has it? Office and field, how do they communicate more effectively? Especially during this pandemic, when there are different people working from different offices coming together for one new project. And this is one of the issues that we see. And coordinated data is not reaching site, and people is relying on the wrong information to construct. And you have to store all this paper that's going to be archived. And even after the project ends, all these things are causing a lot of social responsibility to the earth. I decided to use one particular topic, one particular case study. Recently, we actually published this. Feel free to take down the QR code. It will lead you to the construction blog. How we help a particular main con who has always faced issues improve the way they work. And at the end of the day, there's huge return on investment in terms of 30% of logistic management in savings, talking about 40% improvement in QA/QC process. Let me jump into the right slides for you. But before I go there, a quote given by this BIM manager, who is one of my very good friends. For us, he mentioned that digital transformation is not about adding a set of digital tools or applications to work processes, but rather changing what we have been doing for the past, maybe for the last 10 to 20 years. I look at this sentence, it's true that there are better ways to work. And today I'm going to explore with you what are the better ways. Before we get there, challenges as usual. Approved data is not reaching site. Information that is lost is manual tracking, very tedious. There's no single source of truth, which that's the reason why we're encouraging 19650, ISO 19650. And we're talking about capturing paperwork on site. It's not replicable in all projects. I think it's time to go away with all the paperwork. At the end of the day, all these things printing out is costing a lot of unnecessary, increasing the carbon footprint. What we want is to bring people into one common data environment from all kinds of native formats, files that you need to work on approvals, and bring them from design stage all the way to pre-construction, to field construction, and at the end of the day, handover. And big data, as the gentleman mentioned, is very important for building maintenance, talking about as-built information. And with that, we actually started to introduce this Autodesk Construction Cloud, which we invested heavily to bring people to work more effectively in one common data platform. So, and today we will focus a lot into this area, which what Buildtech has used. What we did was, all the BIM managers or BIM team start to upload their drawings, their BIM models into the construction cloud. Eventually, all other stakeholders that is not BIM, important people, can easily finalize and do walkthrough in the cloud. without the need of powerful workstations, without the need directly streaming from the cloud, using the power of cloud computing, we are able to collaborate more effectively through Zoom meetings like this. And all this analytics and important platform, we also understand who are the people using wrong data or older version data working on the site. And all this give a quick insights in terms of what is needed to be more effective. Talking about ISO 19650, it's also important to make sure that information that is already published is easily able to allow you to manage changes, to understand what changed between the 2D drawings. On top of it, also the 3D drawings that is submitted. And when you talk about 3D drawings that is submitted, the 3D model will come with the 2D drawings that is generated. That actually prevents them from using the wrong order to PDF drawings whatsoever. And when we talk about people working alone, and eventually when submissions are there, they have to do RFI, meeting minutes, approvals, all in one platform. And when we start to work with different companies, different officers, we are able to push information faster, quicker to the field. And all these things come back to analytics and big data for you. Okay. And look at the conventional way of working, right? It's very tedious, talking about how we're going to do design crash check, run the emails through crash report, hoping the user understand where the particular crash happens in a BIM model, eventually send back to the respective stakeholders, and they have issue understanding. And this design iteration continues. Why not work a better way? When submission is done, there's a model checker telling you where's the issues, pinpointing where's the issue, and at the end of the day, click on the issue, assign the issues to the respective people, and the people will be able to see in their own offices what you're trying to communicate with them. That actually resulted in them eliminating abortive works in a quicker manner and coordinating the BIM model. Once all this thing is done, people is asking me, what about 2D drawings? We are used to 2D drawings. Yeah, we support 2D drawings. When design are spotted, the conventional way people is printing it out, they are starting to mark up and draw on it, then eventually scan it back. Then eventually they have to email to the person. The person has to interpret what is the handwriting, written 1997, email back to the end users, and eventually all these things has to be archived. Why not do it in a more simple manner where we can bring data digitally and to walk away from paper? In fact, Buildtech has now go to full digital without printing a single piece of paper. Everything is documented, issues are pinned, eventually resolved, and we can compare drawings directly between two different versions. When drawings are coordinated and approved, we are also very easily to publish information directly to the field for them to make sure that the document is also available for their construction. And when we talk about connected construction, we're talking about connecting the CDE to the field and making things simple, difficult things simple, so that progress photos can be captured and everybody has clear visibility of what's going on. So talking about referencing to the correct reference drawings, using technology to automate the referencing of the drawings, bringing you the right drawings at any time, anywhere. And all this RFI, when there's a change management, how are we able to mark out on this and tag to RFI? And whenever there's a variation change that cause a cost impact, we are able to tag this RFI to the particular cost management module. During construction phase, we also see that there's a lot of non-optimal activities. 8 steps needed on daily basis to go site inspection, print out the right drawings, mark out on the drawings, scan back, put a photo, email. Why not do it in three simple steps that cuts away the unnecessary time spent on paperwork? And with the data coming back automatically, all this, we're using construction IQ. There's AI in it to understand which are the high risk factors and which are the subcontractors that we can add value to make sure that they are able to resolve the issues in a quicker manner. Okay. So we just want to skip because we're mindful of time. Talking about logistic planning is important. So we are able to plan what are the important logistics to understand when are they supposed to reach to site. And once an engineer is doing their work on site, they will walk away from non-optimal activities, updating Excel spreadsheets. Now they just need to flag the status to week on week, what has been completed on site, and to give you a Power BI dashboard to fully understand what is the progress of the work done. We also went further into advancement in terms of tying in the as-built data that is very important for developers and owners to make use of information that's already constructed And at the end of the day, all these O&M menus, catalogs can be tied in. And at the end of the day, we know what SBB models that's handover. We also know what are the commissioning checklists that has been done and digitalized on the field. So only with this, with common data environment that's connected from between the office and the field, are we able to improve productivity. We learn from the past not to stay the same. And today, Autodesk is investing heavily, not only in design tools, but we also go into the cloud space on digital twin, data analytics, whatever that help owners have a better and sustainable project. So with keyword is the ease of use. If we have technology that is not easy to use and not able to be digested by the ground, nobody uses it. So in our recent investment, we actually unified the platform into Autodesk Construction Cloud from the recent acquisition. So I believe together we can make it a better generation for future years to come. And with that, I should end my presentation. But with like you to connect with me, I'll be happy to look into your use case that is required to help you improve better. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Lau, for that innovative keynote. It is well and truly acknowledged that digitalization is no longer just for a specific part of industry or economy, but even more embedded in most facets of life. I believe some of you may have seen some of the diagrams that Mr. William Lau has put up, and some of you may have questions about it. Please do not be shy to ask questions. We have a bit of time at the moment with about 2 minutes plus, and if any of you have got some burgeoning questions that you'd like to ask Mr. Lau, please do so in the meantime. But as we gear up to prepare for the next session, I hope that all of you who have tuned in so far have been able to absorb the information shared here so vividly by both our keynote speakers. I believe Farabi as well as William are able to give you even more insights if you directly contact with them. There have been a lot of requests for your slides, so if they are available, to let us know, and we will be putting it up for the audience that has requested for it. Since there are no questions, I think everybody seems to be shy today, or maybe still on a Chinese New Year mood. Nonetheless, we now move on to welcome our first panel, where we will be talking about trends and tribulations of the built environment, what is happening in Malaysia and its neighbors. With urbanization consistently persistent, even during a pandemic, it is only apt to discuss how we, as Southeast Asia, are adapting and changing the charge in our built environment. Leading the discussion is our esteemed moderator, Mr. Shahrizal Sharani. Shahrizal is a serial entrepreneur with a ton of accolades to his name and is currently the director and co-founder of Zero Hunger Sendirian Berhad. Those who are curious about what Zero Hunger does, just PM him directly and he'll let you know. He is also the deputy chairman of KL Society and has always had a keen eye on digitalization. Together with Shahrizal are Dr. Susi Khatit, Mr. Yu Chaopeng, and Mr. Shahrunizam Samsudin, three equally forward-thinking speakers representing the industry. Just to remind all of you to use the Q&A button to pose your questions, and Shahrizal, our moderator, will try and field those questions to our panelists. Over to you, Shahrizal, to introduce your panelists.
Thank you so much, Lailin, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our panel discussion in conjunction with Buildtech Asia Roadshow. As mentioned earlier, my name is Shahrizal, and I will be moderating this session. Our format for today's session will just be a short minute introductory remarks from each of our esteemed panelists, and we'll follow up by some discussions. But firstly, please welcome our esteemed panelists. First, we have Dr. Susi Khatit, the President of Singapore Institute of Building Limited. And we have Yu Chaopeng, Vice President of the Myanmar Construction Entrepreneurs Federation. And Shahrunizam Samsudin, Managing Director and CEO of Magenta. With that, I would like to welcome Dr. Susi for introductory remarks. Over to you, Dr. Susi.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, for all of them, like I say, maybe still in your Chinese New Year mood. 新年快乐，恭喜发财. Right. Sitting here in Singapore, being in the built environment industry, it has been a very tough year for all of us in Singapore. And I bet also to our neighboring countries. I myself, for the first time last year, been able to complete a 32 million euro farm construction project in the Philippines while seated at my comfort home in Singapore. And we completed the project on schedule. As you all know, Singapore ranked top of the Smart City Index for the third year, which was announced on the 2nd November 2021. And Singapore has made very good progress in transforming the built environment industry. Since the construction industry transformation map, which we call ITM, Singapore is very good in acronyms, which was unveiled in October 2017. It marked a new chapter for all the construction sector. And this has become an outcome of collective tripartite efforts to chart out a roadmap to identify the future growth opportunities for the construction sector. The sector's transformation resulted in the redesign of many job offerings, more attractive job scopes and salaries, and a more conducive and productive working environment. The ITM here, since 2017, describes how the built environment of the future will be shaped. Since 2017, will be shaped by the following key transformation areas, namely integrated digital delivery, which we call IDD, design for manufacturing and assembly, where we call DFMA, and also green buildings. And these early efforts have actually enabled our built environment sector to better weather the many challenges that brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. And at the same time, the many difficulties that the sector faced during COVID-19 in Singapore, such as manpower disruptions, are a reminder for us here in Singapore to press on with our transformation efforts. Now, let me share 3 areas in which Singapore are focused on, leveraging on the 3 Ps. Like I say, we are very good in acronyms, the 3 Ps created by Susie now. The first P is on productivity, second P on the procurement, and the third P is about people. Firstly, about productivity, as we have all listened to the speakers earlier on, they talk about adoption of smart technologies. Well, actually, it really helps in the BE sector to automate manual and repetitive tasks and transform how manpower can be deployed. Under the green gov.sg, all public sectors building in Singapore with a floor area above 5,000 square meters will be required to adopt SMRT Smart FM by the year 2030. Now, I'll touch secondly on the second P on procurement. William Law of Autodesk covered a very good point earlier today, and I love the question where he posed about where are the data? There are so many platforms right now. How do we consolidate here? Most important, I think it's about traceability. How do we trace, right? We can enhance the way we procure services to encourage the deployment of innovative solutions. In Singapore, the current procurement practices have not been very ideal. Let me share, for example, in the facilities management services, the Singapore government now encourage a contract durations of at least 3 years with an option to extend if there's good performance. But of course, firms are advised to adopt the outcome-based contracting to incentivize firms to deliver better services. For instance, building owners could consider providing a bonus or maybe a payout for firms that achieve 0 equipment breakdowns or complaint. Now, thirdly, I'll touch very briefly, as you all know that in Singapore, we work very hard due to manpower shortages to upskill workforce to keep pace with our transformation effort. Okay, I think I have covered my timing. Just result.
Thank you so much, Dr. Susie. Very interesting insights with what is Singapore trying to do, moving ahead of the curve. But of course, we'll also be learning about insights from our other neighbors. And for that, we have Liu Xiaoping from Myanmar. Over to you, Xiaoping.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Actually, Myanmar may be very rare to get all the information, what I like to share. Actually, let me explain about our Myanmar Construction Entrepreneur Federation. Actually, we established since 1996. And then we have a 15-state and division. We have an old chapter in that area. We can say almost cover the whole Myanmar, right? With the members of 10,000 members, and including the corporate members, engineers, and also even to the managers level, and then even to the carpenters, and also the material supplier as well. So actually, after I hear the two, topics, we are really shocked. We are really way behind, even to understand, very difficult, because we are talking the different language like that, right? So at least that's why we are learning. So we are the member of the ASEAN Contractor Association, Asia Pacific Contractor Association, as well the International Housing Association. But after all, what the smart city and then this kind of technology, actually we started since 3 years ago for the smart district, the first one to introduce. But as you know, because of the COVID, I think we didn't finish yet, still in the process. And also like automation, we are also looking the assist from the Singapore, because during our day, we have a lot of what you call labors. Even in Yangon, about 3 million. So we have to balance. If we go for the automation, I think lack of creation of jobs. But anyway, we have to follow the real automation like now because of the COVID, we cannot gather in the big compound with the workers to get spread over the COVID, That is the real good to know that the automation and also the system. Actually, our construction also very rare, even like a project management. So the data, sometimes we cannot get the right data, and that also we have to be followed like Singapore, Malaysia, and Philippines. Even like ASEAN time, we have to follow all the guidelines, because they are in the world ahead of us. We cannot go with the Europe, we cannot go with the Japan, because we are so far. Even Singapore, Malaysia, and Philippines are way ahead of us. So we are keep on track to get things happen. That's why our association and federation have an area to develop the new green city and then the new technology in the west of Myanmar for the seaport as well. So in that case, maybe we need the advice and then for your support. That definitely we need that. So after all, I think although the government support a lot to go for the rental housing, which is affordable housing and low-cost housing, but anyway, still we are in the manually built, So although we have precast block things, but still we are short of to supply for the many buildings. In that case, I think you should, if you need something, I can explain about it. Thank you very much for all.
Thank you so much, Chopin. Clearly, with a big market in Myanmar, there's plenty of growth and opportunity for everybody in the region to participate and, of course, support Chopin. And before we get into our discussions, I'd like to invite Sharon Nizam, of course, to give his insights on how Malaysia is faring in this industry, and of course, to share with us a little bit about Magenta's role in the region. Over to you, Nizam.
Thanks, Sharizal. Hi, Dr. Suzy. Hi, Choping. Nice meeting all of you. Thank you for the introduction. Just quickly, Magenta is a regional asset management building sustainability company. We operate commercial buildings and hospitals, both in Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, India, Dubai, and in Kingdom Saudi Arabia. So when we talk about built environment and facilities management and generally building sustainability, these topics are different in different markets. Of course, and when I just came back from the Middle East, they are doing a lot of development. So development first, and then maintenance, and then sustainability, because there's an influx of capital coming in. But Malaysia is I guess, not too far away from Singapore, we hope. I mean, this is my wishful thinking, Dr. Suzy. But, generally, the lockdowns have really impacted not just the construction industry in general, but the way assets have been maintained over the period of 2 years of lockdowns due to COVID. And I think, during that period, although logic suggests that we should be maintaining those assets during the time when people are not using it, but cost considerations and generally just focusing on the livelihoods and the safety of people remain the priority for the government. So as we opened up the economy, what happened was obviously a lot of these assets required immediate attention. At the same time, the government had to continue to stimulate the economy and increase budgets on projects requiring construction to restart so that they can re-employ locals. Notwithstanding the fact that we also had a lot of labor disruption. So what we found was in our highway asset, we managed more than 3,000 kilometers of highways in Malaysia. We found that a number of disruption had to take place to avoid future maintenance, where we had to do road works. Given the fact that Farabi was mentioning the urbanization rates are increasing, but more importantly, in Malaysia, every urban household has more than 3 cars. I'm not sure where they keep them, but they have a lot of cars. And obviously, as these continue to grow, the highways are continuing to be impacted, and the safety of the passengers become important. So there was an immediate impact on our organizations to ramp up our resources to ensure the highways were continually safe. And then we had the floods. The floods really impacted us again, and so we had to then go on crisis mode and then had to maintain again. And so now, hopefully, after that sort of environment, we are hoping to sustain something that's manageable in a recovery mode. And that's really difficult because we talked about technology, we talked about data, but generally, you need a lot of money in order for that to sort of jump the curve, and then you also have to make the bread and butter stuff work. And I think that balance is something that I guess we're still struggling with in terms of what the right balance is. Generally, buildings either owned by large conglomerates or large REITs in Malaysia tend to be well maintained and well managed. And now with a hybrid workplace environment, I guess less people means less maintenance. But then what we have is a cloud-based system that tracks and monitors all the buildings under our management. So we have detailed data spreads on everything that's inside the building, as well as how do we take care of those equipment, as well as different lightings and electricity and everything else in a way that will manage costs for the client. So Malaysia is very cost-centric at the moment with respect to a lot of the built environments. I'll just give an example in Singapore, and I know Dr. Suzy touched on this, and we operate more than 11 hospitals in Singapore and public hospitals, and we are completely incentivized to not just mechanize and automate, but also to introduce a lot of new technology. And one of the things that she mentioned about productivity, one of the P's, I remember Dr. Suzy, and I'm not as attentive in school, but I think sometimes in this sort of forum, I am a little bit more attentive. We develop an app that allows our cleaners to act as concierge within the hospitals, similar to a Grab app, where they are given odd jobs while waiting for them to clean the assigned area. So we have a sensor that allows them to wait for 50 flushes in a toilet before they actually have to clean it again. And during that time, they actually get to do odd jobs around the hospital. And this concierge service allows us to create greater productivity in the staff, but we also incentivize them to do more, right? So that saves the hospital money from having to hire more people. At the same time, we also offer greater compensation and rewards for the cleaners that work in those environments. So in that sort of effort in trying to improve productivity with the use of data and technology, we see a lot of gains. And I think that's something that I guess policymakers in other countries could look at in terms of how we can improve productivity. I've not seen that in any parts of the world, although I'm starting to do that in Dubai now, where their focus now is to jump the curve another 10 years, and they're looking at buildings that are more hyper aware. They want buildings to be able to heal themselves and to be able to generate work orders through artificial intelligence. And now we're working with systems at 5G, which we call bubbles. These bubbles operate within a cloud environment that allows us to connect building owners and the tenants, as well as the services that they require, in a seamless way to integrate the raw data into something meaningful that can be transacted. So I think generally, as the world moves to a more hybrid work environment and people are managing costs and looking at the utilization of budgets, different markets are going to respond differently with respect to how they intend to continue construction activities and how they maintain buildings and generally sustain them. And I think for companies like ourselves and others around the world that are focused on ESG compliance, this is even more difficult because we're going to have to spend more money to even have more, I guess, indicators to track other elements that perhaps before the buildings have not tracked. And now we're adding things like carbon emissions. We're looking at energy efficiency and all the other stuff. So I thought I'll leave it at that. It's a great topic to talk about, but there isn't any easy answers at the moment.
Thanks so much, Nizam. Wow. Thank you for those insights. I've gotten a couple of golden nuggets which I want to sort of throw to the panel. And this very idea about how sustainability is a very difficult balance, right? If you want to sort of meet outcomes with regards to people, technology, and cash. And what is the Singaporean experience like, Dr. Susi? How do we manage all that, right? Because we will have all this very interest that's always continually fighting over focus. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I think Dr. Susie is frozen.
Yeah, Dr. Susi is frozen.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but I think there's a part of it missing, so I cannot hear really clearly.
I'll repeat it again. This whole idea about the balance of sustainability, people, technology, and the money to drive it all together, right? One of the things that we like to sort of get your insight, how does Singapore manage it, right? How do we make everybody win, and so that one part of that tripartite relationship doesn't suffer?
Oh, so like I said that currently what we have done is in the procurement part, when we thought about investing in solutions, if we do more than 3 years, for example, in the facilities that we get the contractors to be allowed to be tender into a single or maybe more FM services, then we'll be able to deliver greater life cycle savings. I mean, it will be a cost saving for all the firms, especially for people like myself, service buyer, right? Yeah, because for investment into technology, you also need to think about the upfront investments of the companies who are going to do the management itself. Right.
Yeah, that's important. I think that goes hand in hand with the other support that the government is trying to do in Singapore, where they're trying to get asset managers that own 5,000 square meters of spaces and above. Nizam, do you think some kind of policy or law like that would actually help spur the industry?
I think it would, and I think it would have to be in the context of what Faravi was mentioning about, connecting buildings and having smart cities. And generally, I think, just to take the cue on Singapore, focusing on outcome-based contracting or performance-based contracting is the key here, right? Allowing asset managers like ourselves to optimize the use of people, technology, and delivering based on KPIs. That's still very nascent here in Malaysia. However, having said that, our current contractual agreement with some of our key clients are based on certification of the Green Building Index, GBI. And in some cases, I have to get a platinum rating in order for my contract to be renewed, which then assumes a certain level of energy efficiency, carbon emission, and waste management savings that the client would have received. And I think that I think is the future. But unfortunately in Malaysia, there's only 572 buildings that are certified GBI, and that's 0.02% of all buildings in Malaysia. So we're still, well, I mean, in a way, the market is still big, but I think the education process still takes some time in order for traction to be built. And I think, you know, I really think our neighbors in Singapore have really taken the next leap. And hence, you know, the way we run our businesses market to market is also different. We learn a lot from our Singaporean company, and as well as that of our Dubai company. So the idea here, Sharizal, is that, you know, we try to adopt as much as we can in our home country, and then hopefully influence policymakers to look at this more progressively. But we also take cognizance that cost remains an important factor that drives a lot of their decision making, at least for now.
Thanks for that, Nizam. I just want to sort of segue a bit to Chao Ping, and, you know, hearing what you've heard from Dr. Susi and Nizam, how proactive is the ecosystem in Myanmar? Is it industry driven, or is it more government driven in terms of trying to encourage incentives?
Actually, industry driven, because most of the government is only looking for their own property. Actually, for us, is even like design, we have to based on the Singaporean or the base Yangon or the French or Malaysian. Actually, because even like a master planning, we have to base like a DP architect or something like that. So basically, we have to lead by the industry. But because of due to the fund, also the fund from outside, so most of the funders bring in the expertise, because we don't have a real expertise in Myanmar. Although we have a lot of construction companies, still not more than 20 is A grade. A grade means still lack of, compared with the Malaysian or Singapore, is only like a C grade. So really lack of everything. That's why we have to base on the foreign expertise to lead like a project management and something like that. But basically for us is not the government, all the industries are leading.
Thanks.
Government don't have a land. Most of the investor, we have a land, so we put in the land, and then the investor came in and then paid for that.
And that's quite unlike in Malaysia, right, Nizam, where government does own quite a substantive amount of asset. And as you rightly also mentioned, the recent floods has been somewhat of a nightmare, I guess. You know, if you notice, 2019, the damage value was about, I don't know, 39 million, if I saw the slides right. But the recent floods, the estimate is of 6 billion ringgit. And this comes to mind that climate change is going to be something real for everybody in this industry to look at. And as we talk about that balance of sustainability, people, technology, and cash, surely now the design of any particular asset has to survive a 50 or 100 year mark now. What are the next steps? How do we not firefight this problem?
You know, and that's a great question, because we're already running simulations on, you know, the type of pavement that we're going to use for highways in terms of not just longevity, but just the maintenance of managing it. But, you know, Malaysia is it is a country with a lot of undulations. We have a lot of mountains, hills. We've got limestone. So when you build highways or structures across this sort of terrain, you invariably will have issues of, you know, either movements or flooding or erosion, right? Especially around the slopes. So I think generally we have to work within the environment, but now with the assistance of different government agencies, we can now have a better view in terms of the data. That's one. Two is, believe it or not, I'm getting my team to be trained in crisis management in a real way to help, those people, especially our good friends in the fire department as well as the police department, so that when we run our highways, recently with the floods, we had hundreds of cars stranded. We had to evacuate people from their cars using boats and those sort of equipment. And then we had to take equipment to pump the water out, get the mud and sludge out, fix the potholes. And then unfortunately, we had also a lot of dead animals that we had to take care of, and a lot of debris, right? So, and when this happens in a stretch, we have to work really, really fast because it's crisis, right? And in the beginning, I would imagine that it's everybody just did whatever they thought was right. And I told my team, that's not going to happen again. We need to do what we're supposed to do properly with a lot of planning and really train ourselves to be ready. And they're starting the program right now. So asset managers are now almost taking on a lot more scope, given that we have to now take a more expansive view of environment, people, and taking care of assets generally now transcends multiple stakeholders. So for us, the planning is a lot different now, and because of all these, I guess, natural disasters, it's opened up our eyes in terms of what we should be doing or thinking as opposed to what commercially should be done. And I think that's the tough part there, and I come back to the same balance. But given that we have a responsibility, as a corporate citizen here and generally with the world, we need to take that view.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I just also want to sort of learn the Singaporean experience, right? You're a coastal city-state. With climate change, water levels are rising. Is the stuff, are the initiative that Nizam's talking about something similar that's happening in Singapore, or are you guys doing something more or something else?
Yeah, very good question. Right. I think in Singapore, we are talking a lot about sustainable development goals. We talk about SDG, and also most firms, I think they use SDG as a plan to live sustainably. And also many organizations now have already taken steps to incorporate SDGs into their sustainability efforts. Right, even in our institute, Singapore Institute of Building, we have we've got a SG Eco Fund, and we are working on this app, which actually measure your own carbon footprint. And in Singapore Institute of Building Limited, we are going to launch that game soon, and we hope to reach out to more than 2,000 in the second quarter of this year. Yeah, that's what we are all looking at.
Wow! So
the SDG goals. Yeah.
That app it's like an incentive for you to use, or is it something by law?
It's something that you can use because now each of us, when we walk outside, we tend to measure our footsteps, right? So now in Singapore Institute of Building, we will make this calculator the minute you leave home. Yeah, we measure your carbon footprint. Yeah. So we are so looking forward to launch that.
Wow, cool.
Can I borrow that app, Dr. Susie?
Oh, sure. We will send it to you and let you
look at that.
We'll send it to you and let you be the first to download. I mean, for all the participants here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this conversation about SDGs and ESGs, it has taken center stage, especially the last few years. I'm just wondering, this conversation on ESG and SDG, is it something also very loud in Myanmar, Chopping?
Not really, actually, because we need a lot of exposure, actually, right? So our side is only when we start the project, we have to go for environmental impact, or that's it. Not the detail, because we don't have data as well. So For ours is instead of the flood, the main cause is we are sitting on the quake zone. That is the real fear of us. So that's why most of our buildings are not very high. Now, because of the what do you call foreign technology, we can go more than 32 story building. The rest is only our mainly focus on the what do you call the quick zone is especially in the Naypyidaw. First of all, they only allow for 3 stories. That's it. So other kind of environmental impact is not quite severe to us.
Thanks, Chopping. Nizam, I just want to also tackle this interesting idea where Indonesia is now moving its capital to Nusantara, to Borneo, which is the second most biodiverse region in the world after the Amazon. Now, looking ahead, and looking at the urbanization targets of Malaysia, trying to be 84%, if I saw it right. Do you think building concrete jungles is the way to go, or should we try to learn how to integrate more with our forests?
Well, I wouldn't be able to speak on behalf of my colleagues in Indonesia, but I'm pretty sure they're looking at that as a priority.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm not saying as Indonesians, but the
generally
for Malaysia, because we live there too, right? Borneo.
Yeah, so I think so this is the balance, right? I mean, I think the Sabah government is doing a good job trying to maintain the biodiversity and the flora and fauna, particularly in the rainforest, where I think generally, most of the rainforests have been gazetted by, WWF or, various parties are looking at all the stuff there. And I think that's not going to change. I really hope it doesn't, because we need to have orangutan still in somewhere in this world. But generally, I don't think that's going to be disturbed. But what's going to happen is this. I think there will be the emergence of mega cities within different countries, and Malaysia is no different. And I think urbanization is going to move people more towards these mega cities. And generally, the flight of talent is going to happen primarily because, people can work anywhere now. And therefore you don't really have to be situated in a particular place anymore to be able to have a good job or the job that you want. And I'm seeing this everywhere in the world. So I think, in fact, Sabah and Sarawak could actually position themselves as a great destination for working from home, away from home. And I think with the islands and the various things that they could do over there that could excite the younger generation and the new talent, which is completely different from how we grew up. We had to be in an office to work and carry a briefcase and make sure that we work hard for over 20 years and hopefully get somewhere in our lives. But generally, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they're asking me stuff that I don't understand. And what that means is that they prefer to see me in a screen like this than to have a proper conversation over coffee most of the time. So I think mega cities are a thing that is going to happen really, really quickly. I presided over 3 plans in Dubai recently where they are building massive work from home facilities, to invite Europeans, Americans, to not just move their headquarters there, but really move their entire workforce, and live and play in a I guess very cosmopolitan city, but just away from where they are. So I think there is a conscious view about the environment, as well as a conscious view that talent is no longer going to be staying put in one place. That goes for money as well, and generally, we have to now figure out how built environments and assets are going to play a role. Actually, we are being disrupted in that sense, right? Because we have to figure out all these real estate investment REITs and trusts. How are they going to continue to get the yields? Where would the investors come from? What kind of properties do we need to build in the future? And these are a lot of important questions. And to Chow Peng's point, maybe countries like myself and even Myanmar could even jump the curve. Maybe we don't have to follow the same route. Maybe we just look at, okay, what's going to happen in the future and just sort of take a bet there. Because there's no point going through that development process simply because it won't last very long.
That's
But
right.
actually, for the building of a new capital, actually, I agree. Previously, we have a lot of complaint why the government is moving to Naypyidaw. But if they don't move, in Yangon, we cannot move anymore, Even now, there's a lot of traffic jam and then the old building, I think that's a good idea, that there's a lot of space and then the diversify of the business as well. Otherwise, everybody is jump up to the Yangon and then crowded.
Yeah, we're running out of time. I just want to end this with one point that Nizam brought up, which is talent, and about how do we focus on the new talent, the Gen Zs and the millennials, and how do we retain them? And as he rightly say, there's abundance of opportunities outside of one's country. What is the Singaporean experience, and what's their story, Dr. Susi?
Yeah, I think what I have done earlier, again, on my 3 Ps, the last part of the P is about people. So perhaps I think what Singaporean has worked hard is to upskill their workforce with the current pace of their transformation efforts. And then I think in Singapore, more needs to be done to address a lack of training and expertise among Singaporeans when it comes to basic trade skills in areas like, for example, like in construction. Singapore's dependence on foreign labor in this industry has been a weak spot throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And with all these travels restrictions and the spread of COVID-19 have led to delays across the industry, especially in the construction. So I think working to push these skills into the mainstream and make careers in this sector is something that Singapore has to do. The problem is not new right now. In 1979, the Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, back then said that if Singapore economy can depend solely on commerce, finance, and servicing, I think we can afford to leave things as it is. But Prudence tells us that the hardcore of workers in all the essential industry must be from the Singapore citizens, be it in construction, metal processing, shipbuilding, or repairing. Yeah, so I think with this, Singapore needs to rebuild its economy in a post-COVID world affected by the climate change. And it's the time to strike while the iron is hot. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Susi. And with that, just a quick roundup. The delicate balance of sustainability between people, technology, and cash, and of course, compounding with this awesome opportunity in the built environment industry, is something for us to be very cognizant of, and many golden nuggets for thought from our discussions. Thank you so much, Dr. Susi, Chow Ping, and Sharonizam. And thank you also for the ones that's listening in the session. With that, back to you, Lailin.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Chow Ping, Sharonizam, as well as Dr. Susi. That has definitely been a very thought-provoking and nothing less than spectacular panel discussion. I'm sure all of you have got loads of questions to ask. There is a question in the Q&A box that has been directed to Mr. Sharonizam Samsudin of UM Magenta. So if you have the time, do answer it in the chat box by typing your answer. And I'm sure that some of you would also have some burgeoning questions that you'd like to direct directly to some of the speakers. So moving on, we conclude the discussion on trends and tribulations. But now we bring forth a discussion which, Mr. Sharonizam was also talking about in terms of adopting innovative solutions, where Mr. Siva Nayakam Balayutam, Director in charge of Industry Development and Marketing in Digital Penang, will be the moderator for. This second panel will be talking about innovative solutions for the new Buildtech environment. And Siva has been quite elusive. I've been asking him to be a moderator for many sessions before, and finally he has agreed to do this one. Thank you so much, Siva, for taking on this opportunity. I am sure we'll be very happy to see what you are able to do in terms of bringing up to discussion with these 5 very esteemed panelists. Joining him are the industry's echelons. They are, firstly, Mr. Oliver Tian, Honorary Advisor Mentor of Asia Pacific Assistive Robotics Association. Then we have Mr. Paul King, Industry Solutions Director at Bentley Systems, Mr. Ken Wong, the CEO and co-founder of Wizzles and Dhiren Berhad, Mr. Nick Chin, founder of Green Quarter, and rounding up the panel is IR Dr. Megat Zuhairi bin Megat Tajuddin, the Engineering Director of Public Works Department of Malaysia. Over to you, Siva, to introduce your panel.
Thank you so much, Lailin. Good day, everyone. Good to see everyone today. That was an interesting just now on build environment, build innovation trends. I was actually the concept has make us make everyone has started working from home. So how that anyway, we touch a bit about now as you all know, innovation is
Please bear with us. There seems to be some technical difficulty on Siva's side. The irony of it when you're heading digital Penang. But of course, we know that this happens half the time, and especially when we're doing a webinar. As we wait for Siva to come back, maybe Oliver can do an introduction for Apara, and then we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go. Fantastic. He's back. Welcome back.
Hi, guys. Very sorry. Yeah, it has to happen during my session. It was just okay. Hi everyone. Again. So topic today is innovative solutions for the new Buildtech environment. As you all know, the application of innovation in the construction industry is not straightforward, despite the importance of this sector to the economic growth of every country out there, right? Every construction project is different, which means that construction companies have to adapt their processes and resources to suit each project. So let's hear more about this from this group of amazing people who are going to talk about how technology is changing the built environment. Okay, so I have here in my panel, firstly, Oliver Tian, the Honorary Advisor, Mentor of Apara, Paul King, Industry Solution Director of Bentley Systems, IR Dr. Megat Zuhairi, Engineering Director of Public Works Department of Malaysia, Ken Wong, co-founder and CEO of Wizzles and Dhiren Berhad, and finally, Nick Chin, founder, director of Green Quarters and Dhiren Berhad. I'm now going to pass the time to my fellow panel members to share, to introduce their organization and also briefly share on how the organization is involved in innovating the Buildtech environment. Maybe I'll start first with Oliver Tian. You are mute, Oliver.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Siva. A pleasure to be here to meet so many esteemed speakers. APARA, name for short, stands for the Asia Pacific Assistive Robotics Association. And we particularly picked the name Assistive Robotics because we believe robotics will be a key play in many sectors, not just in healthcare and in manufacturing. The construction sector actually will probably need a lot of help from robotics. And in particular, when we look at robotics, not just the simple pick and drop, it's going to involve a bit of intelligence. Hence, AI in robotics is going to be a key topic. We look at how technology can actually augment human capability and extend potential in a number of ways. And hence, this is what we drive. And we talked a lot to the different countries globally as well as regionally on the different innovations that they are looking at, and we try to share best practices. I hope in today's panel I can share a bit more about what we are doing and give you some more insights on what's happening outside the Southeast Asia region. Back to you.
Thank you, Oliver. Paul?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Paul King from the construction team at Bentley Systems. Bentley Systems is a global top 100 software company. And we provide innovative software and services for companies and individuals and teams that design, build and operate and maintain the world's infrastructure. And so we're really focused on all aspects of technology in that built environment.
And we will go to Zuhairi. Maybe you could share what kind of build innovation is happening in PWD or Public Works Department, Malaysia.
Thank you very much, Siva. JKR, or Jabatan Kerja Rakyat Malaysia, or Public Works Department, is a technical government agency. Our responsibility is to involve in development of infrastructure and government buildings in Malaysia. So we have been established since more than 150 years ago. In engineering particularly, especially in providing technical services to the government. Being 150 years, we would definitely describe ourselves in the construction industry in general as a mature industry. So when it comes to mature, then there will be challenges in adopting and innovating in terms of our doing things. It's quite challenged, but of course, IR 4.0 forces us to move away from defining ourselves as mature. So it's an opportunity. I believe although it's challenges always come with opportunities. Then these opportunities, we should grab it right now. So I think built environment, construction industry will be a great place and a great industry for us to adopt emerging technologies. I will share later when it comes to the Q&A, or maybe later when it comes to the question from you.
Thanks, Zuhairi. Interesting to know how a 150-year-old organization is now being disrupted by technology, and they have to innovate. And it's I'm not sure whether how rapidly these changes could happen in an organization like that. Okay, let us go to Ken Wong. Maybe you could introduce about your organization and also how your organization is involved in the Buildtech innovation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is Ken. So the co-founder and CEO of Visa. So Visa is a leading global information technology solution and service provider focused on solutions for construction and property development, companies and also businesses, SME and SMI. The company actually leverage its skill in information technology to help digitalization and streamline the business process and people management as well. All right.
And finally, for you, Nick, to share.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Siva. Right, I'm Nick. So I'm the founder and also managing director of Green Building Syndrome Berhad. So sustainability has been the heart of Green Quarter since the very beginning. So Green Quarter is a group of passionate professionals having the same common goal in creating an environment that enhances people's experience. So the way that we enhance people's experience is by designing occupant focused green buildings that are comfortable, healthy, economical, and add values to their life. So we use a virtual environment such as we conduct dynamic energy simulations, daylight simulations, acoustic analysis, and so on and so forth to assist our clients in achieving their goals. And we work with owners or developers to transform non-green buildings into occupant-focused green buildings that are, add values and comfortable. Back to you, Mr. Siva.
Thank you. So yeah, green is also becoming a very important topic nowadays. We are talking about in Penang. We are talking about green data centers. How can we have more green buildings? And of course, one of the visions of the state itself is to make Penang as a green smart state. Right. Let us go to the first question that I have here. This is more for starting with Oliver and then to Paul. Both of you are in Singapore and Australia. Perhaps you can share with the audience here some of the latest technology trends for built environment globally, okay, in terms of technology that's being used out there, and also probably cite some of the innovation that is currently happening in your regions.
Sure, thanks, Siva. Yeah, thanks, Siva. I suspect and I believe also strongly that the construction industry has been underserved by technology quite a bit. It is a very labor-intensive industry, yet we are not able to put in a lot of automation. First of all, I think when you talk about automation and how robotics can come into play, I believe that the 3Ds stand out very strongly, right? It has to take care of some of the dirty work, the dangerous work, and the dexterous work, right? If it's too laborious and humans' health is affected, that's where technology must come in to support the industry. We have heard that in China during the pandemic period, they built a building. They put together a building in 10 days, 10-story building in 10 days. But the question is, how did they do it, right? How could you actually mobilize resources, both human and material, to get it done in 10 days? There are a lot of ideas and there are a lot of experiments around the world, in Europe and US. What we are seeing is clearly and surely 3D printed houses are becoming quite a norm, right? A lot of developers are switching to 3D printed houses. So basically, if you look at a 3D printer that you probably buy and put it in your house, in your lab at home, now it's a bigger machine that can really layer the bricks and the wall to build the structure you're looking for. And it has to be integrated to BIM, right, in order to achieve that. In China, in terms of how they make it so fast, they actually did a lot of prefabrication. And in Singapore, we do similarly as well. A lot of walls and components are built in a factory. They're manufactured in factory, delivered on site, and assembled up like a Lego. That speed up the process a lot. You don't have to wait for drying time. You don't have to wait for the sun to be there, and so on and so forth. So here and there, we need to think a lot around why are the areas innovations can be put in place. Let me talk about some of the things that we are trying to explore in the Singapore region. Right, with the pandemic, there was a task force put together to look at what we call Construction 4.0. And some of the exercises is to identify areas where robots and machines can play a bigger role. One example is polishing the wall. Right, after the wall has been built, you need literally a human to go and sandpaper the wall, make sure that it's all smooth, so that when you do the painting, it's easier. Can that job be replaced by a machine? Now, why do we do that? Because it's so dangerous, right? It's dusty, it's dirty, it's real tough, and in fact, health is a major issue, right? When you do all the sandpapering, right, you breathe in a lot of those dust. So if there's a way a machine can assist at least 80% to 90%, it will solve big problem that we are facing today, and it can keep our humans a lot more healthy. That's why if I look at what Apara does, we believe in the augmentation of technology to human capability, right? We don't need the machine to do everything, but to take care of the bulk of the job so that we can the humans can come in and do the final QA, right? So this is where we believe there are great opportunities for machines, especially intelligent machines, to play a part to support the construction sector. So I'll leave some time for Paul, right, but that's what I have to share for you for now.
Very, very interesting. Paul, your views?
Yeah, sure. I agree with that. And I think it's important that when we talk about technology in construction, it's not about technology coming in and replacing lots of jobs and putting people out of work. It's really helping them to do their jobs better and more effectively, so they can work on more projects and get more done and become more productive. And it's getting that blend right that I think is important. And again, I think I'm based down in Australia and I work across the region and the globe in construction and project delivery. And what I'm seeing is just lots and lots of different types of technology being tried and tested and evaluated, and particularly in Southeast Asia at the moment. And technology is really changing the competition and the industry landscape for everybody. And it's not just designers doing BIM or manufacturers with smart procurement, builders, it's software vendors, it's suppliers, it's really everybody is being presented with the opportunity to digitize their business and exploit technology to deliver better projects and also meet some of those sustainability goals that we heard about earlier. Some of the touch points about how do we make our infrastructure more sustainable and meet those sustainability goals and environmental goals. So technology has a part to play in that. But I think for me, there are, I guess, probably three technologies that are still fairly new and are starting to have quite a big impact on construction projects in the region and globally. And the first of those is 4D planning and project execution. And what that means is we take a 3D model, so typically coming from a BIM application, we link it to the contractor's schedule, and we do some smart things with it, and we can create time-based sequences, we can plan out construction, so we're finding out any sort of logistics problems early on, we can optimize how we build, we can make sure we're building safely, we can identify risks, we can evaluate our sustainability, compliance and reporting, all by using the existing BIM content and the existing schedule, but doing some smart things with it. And for me, the important thing about that is, well, two things. One is it's pretty cool stuff. So when you see these schedules created, it just looks really nice, and it's very creative and very effective. But the contractors and projects that are using it report time savings on their projects of between 10 and 15% every time. So that means a contractor working on maybe an 8 or 10 month project might be saving 4 to 6 weeks off that schedule. And when you think it might cost him maybe, in Singapore dollars, it's maybe a couple of $100,000 a week to be on site. And saving a month is a big saving on the project just by reusing existing information smarter. The second, sorry, sorry. Did you want to?
No, just say it's interesting to know about.
Yeah, and again, for me, it's using what we have now and doing it in a smarter way by using some of the latest computing power and processes that we have. The second is reality modeling. And what that does, it takes the latest surveying technology, and typically this is done using drones or a combination of cameras on drones and handheld cameras. And it takes a series of photos and point clouds, and it mashes those together with some very clever software to create a visually correct, a dimensionally accurate 3D reality model of that piece of infrastructure. Now that could be an excavation in the ground. It could be surveying an existing building prior to some renovations, but it can also be a city. And there's a great example from Singapore where they recently went through an exercise to create a reality model for the entire country. And that was done to an accuracy of 10 centimeters. So a series of aerial photographs, ground-based photographs, and using that software, apart from having a single, I think a world-first reality model of an entire country, that was done more than a year, in fact, almost a year and a half quicker than if they'd used traditional surveying and measuring techniques. And it turned out to be about $20 million cheaper than if they'd done it the old way. So it's quicker, it's cheaper, and they get a better result. So that reality modeling technology is being used on lots of construction projects to monitor progress, to inspect or perform inspections that might be dangerous for humans. So going back to Oliver's point about, if one of the Ds, if things are dangerous, well, send in a drone or send an automated machine to survey that and create a reality model. And then the third one is the construction digital twin. So we're seeing a lot of information now and interest and excitement about digital twins generally and how they relate to smart cities. And they're really all part of that same digital infrastructure and ecosystem. But specifically the construction digital twin, it interests me because, again, we have construction teams using this now regularly on projects. And again, it's really about reusing existing data in better ways. So we take drawings and models from design. We take feeds from the field that might be IoT sensors, they can be QR code data, RFID tags, and we bring those into a database, and we can then use them in workflows like estimating of projects, 5D workflows. We can use them for safety inspections, progress monitoring, witnessing and commissioning of systems and machines and so on. So we can start to automate more of our processes on site. And one of the things I really like about that is that it's not all or nothing. Companies don't have to invest millions of dollars and millions of ringgit in in investing in a digital twin solution, they can build the framework by getting things like BIM correct. They can implement collaboration properly. They can develop their processes and workflows, and then gradually add bits of technology on successive projects to improve what they do in an incremental way. So those are the sort of and globally.
Interesting. So yeah, so what I get from here is that one is that we need innovation or new technologies to make 3D jobs much safer. But at the same time, technology or innovation is not going to remove jobs. It's just going to increase the productivity and basically make humans do the jobs better. And of course, in terms of the trends, 4D and reality modeling and digital twin, these are the some of the emerging trends. Even digital twin, we were in Penang, we were looking into how can we have the utility maps on a digital twin, right, to start with. That was something that we were planning to look at. So the next question is for Zohairi. It's interesting. Earlier, our speakers were talking about 3D printed buildings and then buildings being built within 10 days and stuff. So with pandemic, there's a lot of disruption on how we normally do things, especially in the built environment, right? So the question is, where do you see the built environment heading towards in Malaysia, and how will Public Works Department of Malaysia adapt or capitalize on it?
Thank you, Siva. When we talk about the future direction, we always relate to innovation or adoption of new technologies, emerging technologies. It's always about that. But then we have to relate ourselves in construction industry that's been established. Probably, if you say the pyramid is a classic proof of a product in our construction industry 5,000 years ago, then the maturity, the definition of us being matured, sometimes limit us for us to grow. We said that and for us to improve. First of all, we need, in fact, studies has indicated that construction industry is among the lowest in terms of innovation. When it comes to innovation, it talks about adoption of new technologies. I think, first of all, we need to reset ourselves, that we are no longer mature. We have to be, when it comes to technology, we are at an nascent stage. And when we come to that point, then we see the whole landscape of industry, of the construction industry, shall not follow the fundamentals of conventional engineering or conventional construction industry. For example, 3D printing. As what Oliver just said, in Singapore, they have been doing it by building a house in 5 or 3 days. We are actually looking into that. We are doing a pilot of building a one terrace house, aiming for 3 days. So that, although it changes the fundamentals of building a house from a few weeks or few months into 3 days, it also involves change of fundamentals of engineering design, mechanical, electrical installation of facilities in that building. So in fact, it brings us to reduce not just time, but the big pains of our country that dependent on low skilled foreign workers. Again, apart from that, technology brings precision. It will bring quality products. Then again, innovation, new ideas always requires uncertainties and risk. Uncertainties and risks is what we, as in the construction industry, feels that limits us from going a lead change. Because risk, uncertainties, when it build the environment or construction industry, it will always relates to safety, public safety. That's something that we have to weigh. That's one thing. Second is that when we talk about built environment or construction industry, we always talk about where asset creation. Facility management is something has bigger opportunities for us to look into. For example, if you have sensors, if you even look into self-healing materials, facility management, the concept of facility management changed drastically. Because, for example, if you use self-healing materials on our roads, which potholes comes from a small cracks. If we manage cracks potholes will not become an issue. So self-healing is something that we need to look into, right? Although we thought self-healing is always on the pharmaceutical or in the other aspect of the industry, but it's cross. The technology is not focused on industry, but it cross industry. Again, AR, augmented reality, which will allow on facility management, and in fact, video analytics is what the other panel Paul was explaining. We are looking into CCTV and drones to to do works that brings the image of that 3D. Again, although it removes, move us away from 3D, but the value that comes from that machine, a drone, CCTV, we give greater values. For example, the images, the 3D images that we created from that drones and CCTV, if you match with BIM, it will translate it to so many information, progress reports, defects reports. In fact, if you can always then define whether the design and the construction, whether it's matched. We started off with trying to solve a problem. It gives greater values and solving more problems to the construction industry. So stop moving forward or looking to the future. Stop think of ourselves as those in the mature industry. We shall think ourselves, reset our minds. Those in the construction industry, we are now at a starting line of using advanced and emerging technology. Thank you.
Very, very interesting. Yes, we could see that a lot more emphasis have been made towards the smart cities. A lot more emphasis has been made towards building more sustainable, developments and constructions, right? And in line with that, of course, green buildings is something that is very much talked about in Malaysia, right? So the question is to Nick. What kind of technology is required for us to have more green buildings in Malaysia? Maybe you could also explain about some of the standards, the requirements, and also on the technology side.
All right, sure. Thank you, Mr. Siwa. Yeah, I think Mr. Megat has also mentioned a little bit about some of the frameworks has already been there. And yeah, just to add on a little bit, Malaysia definitely is working towards a sustainable built environment. So I think you have also seen some of the first presenter has also presented some of the framework, and also experienced that many private companies has taken the ESG, the environmental, social, and government seriously for the past 2 to 3 years. Yeah. So to answer your questions, so how our organizations be able to adopt, or create, adopt in this sustainability? I think the answer for us is since sustainability has been the very beginning of my organizations. So to give you an idea, just now the very first presenter has presented some of the work, and that's exactly what we've been doing. So what we do is we assist developers or owners with our simulations or virtual modeling. I think Mr. Paul has mentioned a little bit about that as well, the skills that we have. And with that, we'll be able to predict their capex and operation costs, the OPEX, and to also advise how it can be optimized. Yeah. So the capability of having a virtual environment, it's amazing, I must say, because one of the biggest factors here is we're dealing with the weather, right? Weather is dynamic, right? So yeah, I think many of you has mentioned that lately Malaysia has experienced that as well. We have a very extreme drought, and now we have an extreme, flood and storm, right? So how to manage that, in terms of as a designer, right? So obviously, I must say that virtual modeling and simulation is the way to go to predict a more accurate way, and with a shorter time that we have here, right? So yeah, before I pass the time back to you, I think the key to achieve, for most of the owners and developer here is to achieve a higher of return of investment of development, and at the same time in achieving a sustainable environment, I think it definitely has to be adopting some of the virtual environment simulations or software. Yeah, back to you.
Yeah. So in Penang, of course, as you all know, there's a couple of mega projects is happening. One of it is the reclamation of the three South Islands, and then another big developer from Malaysia is looking into develop the northern part of Penang. Another big what do you call that, township is coming up, and of course a lot of them have adopted technologies, but in a big way, but still there's going to be a lot of things that they could improve, right? And with that, and then came the pandemic. Pandemic disrupted a lot of things. It slowed down. There's issues in terms of getting your foreign workers and stuff. So next question is to Ken Wong, and of course everyone can also jump in. So for Ken Wong, what is the impact of the pandemic to build environment? Especially because of the pandemic, and why is it important for players in the built environment to adopt innovation to remain competitive, especially in this current era?
Yeah. So I believe right now, no matter it's a pandemic or endemic, right? So yeah, surely like impact because the change, the people lifestyle or the way how they work, or some of them might start to practice work from home, and then there's a lot of SOP to comply and so on, right? With the existing maybe like the manual system and so on, right? Actually, it's almost impossible for them to manage, right? This is the bad things that impact to the industry. But at the same time, actually, this pandemic actually like fasten the speed, like let everyone mindset opens to really look into why they want to digitalization. What is the benefits to bring them or to overcome to all this, right? Since they after that then you have all this data to increase their like efficiencies, even though save costs and so on, right? But when come to this point, right, then people will start having some challenges like, so what kind of system I can use? Okay, for example, maybe I give an example in a construction industry, no matter you are developer or contractors and so on, right? So you might need to like manage a bunch of people, right, as your workers, especially sometimes they are from foreigner workers. This will be a very challenging, like, how you find a solution, which is like a cloud solution, which you can remotely manage and control and monitoring. At the same time, you can get like on-site daily reporting and so on. But the foreigner workers or even those local workers can know how to use it. Right? This will be some of the challenging, right? Some of the contractors company, they not even have like a huge budget to implement such a system and so on. That's why. So we also our company also come in to the picture, actually providing like those solutions, like almost like charging like 10 cents a day, or for them, everyone can start without like investing hardware and software, build up servers and so on, right, to help the industrial to look into that, right? So I believe all this kind of data will definitely increase their operations, right? They can provide all this kind of value-added reports and progress and so on, right? And then they do have a real-time data. It makes a very big difference, right? Previously, if they, for example, if they do for their all the site workers attendance and so on, by using maybe thumbprint or even those like timesheet or punch card and so on, right? Now everything just changed to an app based with a face recognition and so on. So this will be just like everything they can see and monitor in the real time. Or another scenario, sometimes like is emergency things happen to the site and so on. If the old kind of system, right, actually is impossible. They know like how many people exactly in that building, or how many workers are already run out from there and so on. Now you're using an app, it's very simple, right? Everyone they know, today I got 150 workers in the site, and now I make announcement in the app. Everyone just get notified and please report yourself and make sure you are safe and so on. Then within 10 minutes, right, everyone then know, there may be like missing 10 people or something, right? Then they can do action immediately. I believe this will help really the industry for that.
Interesting because the key things here that you pointed out is one is using app, create a lot of data, but the more important thing that you mentioned is like this is what we are facing here in Penang also, especially digitalization of the industries, the SMEs and stuff. The smaller guys, they always how to say, they are the last one to adopt digital, so they have to be like what you're providing. There should be something which is simple to use, which could be cost effective, especially for the SMEs, right? So that's important. And of course the crisis has accelerated digitalization in a big way. Maybe I could ask Paul on this. How much acceleration happened, especially in Australia or in the regions that you cover, before the pandemic and now? And what are the how fast, and also does it only happen to these bigger developers or bigger construction players, or it's across the board?
Sorry, I missed that very first part of your question. Were you asking about how digitalization has changed over?
Yeah, has accelerated.
Yes, I think it's been interesting because it's one of the few. Construction before the pandemic was facing lots of challenges. They're bidding on very low margins. The work is gross and dirty. It's subject to the weather, but there's a lot of resistance to change, and there always has been in construction. And we were starting to see some shifts with people trying different bits of technology before the pandemic. But during the pandemic, all those other problems were still there and maybe getting worse. But actually, that digitization side of things, really, companies had to do that to survive. So they had to, for example, implement a collaboration process, because you couldn't have your engineers on site to monitor work, and not just here in Australia on some of our large projects, but I think globally, construction teams were faced with the fact they couldn't get their engineers and inspectors to site. They had to come up with creative ways of doing that and of getting around the problem. And so they adopted technology very quickly in many cases to do that. Again, as we're talking now on Zoom and using Teams and using lots of online collaboration systems, the infrastructure is there now generally where we can have these sort of conversations on our phones, on our watches, our different mobile devices. We just expect that works. And construction is no different. So there's some really good use cases of people using collaboration, and that's been needed for a long while. And I think what I'm seeing is that the pandemic has accelerated that. And on the side of collaboration itself, there was a report by McKinsey a couple of years ago, and they looked at sort of average large projects globally. And they found that, aside from the fact that they tended to be very late and very over budget, they said one of the reasons for that is just the sheer complexity. So they said the average project had about 1,000 people from about 200 companies sharing more than 2 million documents. And what they also found was that they were using very little of the data they had. So they found that almost 5% of the data of the project was used on a project, but the rest wasn't. So 95% of data that was generated wasn't used. And I think what the pandemic has got contractors to focus on, and delivery teams, is what is it we really need, and how do we get it? How do we make sure people have access to the right information at the right time to do their job? So the pandemic has really sort of accelerated that shift to implementing best practices in that regard. And there are international standards, there are ISO standards for collaboration and for other technology implementations as well. And I think they're also realizing about the cost savings. So it's not just a case of they have to do this because they can't get to site. What they're realizing is it's actually saving them money, by using technology to get things right first time. So just like in design, if a designer uses BIM tools properly and eliminates clashes and problems, it actually costs less to work that way than they used to do with 2D. Contractors in the same way are realizing that initially they had to apply some of this technology to their projects, but they've realized it's actually saved them time and money on the project. And so they're starting to accelerate that adoption. And I'm seeing that globally around the world.
Interesting. And Oliver, in terms of touching on collaboration, right? Of course, collaboration, as Paul highlighted, there will be cost saving. There could be more complex projects executed or built in a very short time and stuff, right? So in your view, how important is collaboration and in the Buildtech environment? And maybe you could share with us some of the collaboration exercises that you have seen or experienced.
Sure. Thanks for the question. In fact, this is a very, very important question. I look at collaboration in two forms. One is internally within a geography, and we talk about the ecosystem collaborating together so that the supply chain is able to support each other and ensure that you deliver the right quality accordingly. The second is collaboration cross-border. And everyone is really trying to put their hands around technology, not just digitalization, but really how technology can be used to automate some of the tasks. And we all do not want to reinvent the wheel. We want to understand best practices across different countries and try and piece everything together. In this regards itself, APARA, working with the Global Robot Cluster, is trying to fill a roundtable inviting countries from around the world as an initial pilot. There will be about 7 countries to talk about their experiences and how we can pull together some collaborative idea on best practice sharing and eventually lead that into standards. Now, I know that the construction industry has got very strict code of ethics and practice, right? The engineers are very disciplined, but that's really the traditional construction space. When we start to adopt technology, and like what Dr. Megat Zohari mentioned, right, there's risk. When we bring this technology in, have we covered all the angles, right? So this is where I think we need to get into, in my view, a phase 2 of construction, where when we start to look at introduction of new technologies, robotics, AI, or whatever we want to call it, right? There has to be some panel of top gurus who can share the thoughts, who can then try to put in some collective wisdom around the standards. And only by doing that, then when two parties come to collaborate, whether it's within the ecosystem or cross-border, there's a common language that we can all talk about. So that's very important, and APARA advocates that idea and would love to push for a good discussion around that space.
Interesting. So sharing of thoughts on standards and it's key. Dr. Megat Zohari, so next question is for you. One of the challenges of the construction industry, I think public work departments is facing this, is the shortage of workers and also skilled workers, right? A lot of projects have been, some projects have been delayed, especially during this pandemic last 2 years' time. What do you recommend on how organizations or construction companies to navigate this using innovative solutions?
I think these issues of shortage of skills or shortage of human resources, it's an opportunity. Challenges becomes opportunities. The construction industry has always been trying to move away from dependence of physical workers, especially non-skilled, or maybe in Malaysia, dependence on foreign workers, cheap labor, and also those labors that involve in 3D, again, the dangerous, difficult, and demeaning and so on. Open up the doors for us to then replace that with machines, automations, and technologies. Although it seems like we are replacing workers with machines, but we actually creating more jobs for skilled workers, experts, those with more higher skills workers that will then operate or use that technologies rather than depending on those who doing routine works. For example, when we had our 3D printing, maybe soon in our construction projects, we are no longer depending on those from other countries to do all those non-skilled works. That what we need are those engineers who are operating that machines, and also at the same time we will then depending on other machines that will accelerate the process of adopting new technologies. Of course, every time we introduce new technology, there will be skeptical of whether the success of that use of new technology. I totally agree with what Oliver said, that we need to learn from everybody, internally, regionally, and internationally. Again, when we want to establish one of our initiative of using CCTV and drones in remote monitoring or e-monitoring in one of our projects, big projects, and we realized that Singapore has established standards of that e-monitoring. Then when I read that a framework, it's actually we share the same problem and we share the same direction. So why are we trying to reinventing the wheel? And in actual fact, I think in Singapore and in Australia or Malaysia, we share similar problems, but then how much we adopt, how fast we adopt that technology is what is the main challenge right now. For example, when we wanted to introduce machine learning and also video analytics in establishing, again, one big example is that the 3D printing again. I showed that this is the opportunity. We could actually change our construction from 3 months to 3 days. This one questions what happens when it's raining, and then it's new technology, and that question comes again, if the conventional work, conventional non-technology construction, when it rains, we stop doing work. And why are they asking questions when we introduce technology? Rains becomes a problem. That reflects, the resistance of us of accepting new technology. Again, coming to the question whether how do we manage a shortage of skilled workers? Malaysia has abundance of skilled workers. Is that we do not have the opportunity for them to show their true potential because we give them routine works, non-advanced technology use of works. So yeah, I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, interesting. Yes, this technology, the pandemic basically created an opportunity for the construction industry to create more high-skilled workers, right, or high-skilled workers among Malaysians, especially. And Ken, maybe you might also want to share a bit more on this. I mean, you have a certain technology solutions. What do you think about how can construction basically how can they reduce the disruption, especially on the labor shortage and skilled worker shortage? Ken, do you have a view on this?
Yes, sorry, I lost you a little bit just now when you asked the question. Yeah,
on this labor shortage, right? You being a technology provider, what is your view? What are those technologies can be used, especially by the smaller construction company, to reduce the challenges they are facing due to labor shortage?
Yeah. So yeah, due to the labor shortage, I believe, I think they can manage all their existing employee with more efficiency, right? So especially now in the shortage people, then they have to utilize and allocate all their workers' time accordingly, so that they can continue carry on the project in progress at the same time, right? So I think for the long run, they still need to wait until a little bit on the borders open, and then so they can get more people. Then using just rather than everyone just skip on their working hours and so on, right? So they know using this kind of app then they know they definitely everyone doing their parts to get more more efficiently on this.
And one final question. This is on digital twin. Probably Nick, you could share more views on this. One of the things that we are trying to do in Penang is that to introduce digital twins on construction. right? And because as you know, construction, when you plan a construction, there's a lot of surprises, a lot of unforeseen circumstances, and final, there could be a lot of other disruption. How can digital twin minimize these or help the construction industry or build industry, please?
Okay. Yeah, I think all of us know, right? Indeed, building is, complex, comprises of so many, components, and at the same time, buildings are so sophisticated, right? Moving forward, you see a lot of, that's why today we're talking about, build tech, right? Many has also asked, what is the impact towards the energy, and claims that their products will save me 30% of energy, and some say 70%, right? So how to go about this, right? And how to assess whether whatever that I've spent today, and the amount of money that I need, and also versus the return of investment, right? So I think again, I just want to quote, the second presenter today, Mr. William, has also given a very good example of how complex it is in a traditional way versus the technologies, right? So back to Mr. Siva, your situation, I think the solutions to integrate several elements into one is the virtual environment. I think I mentioned this a couple of times, right? Or I think Paul will also mention that digital twin, right? So basically, give you an idea on a virtual model is basically a digital representation of the physical or the actual objects, right? So a computer program that uses a real world data to create simulations that able to predict the performance of the building, or of course the situation, in taking into account of many variables. So I think the very many variables is the issue now, right? I think I've highlighted earlier on, the biggest issue now is we're dealing with weather and climate change, right? People have been talking about that, right? So that's basically the issue now. So I think as an engineer and the designers in my field, we are talking about 100 years of design. But today you have been seeing that 100 years happening not in 100 years, but in a year, probably that has already occurred in a year a few times, right? So let me give you an example. So one of our clients would like to explore the possibility of having a natural ventilated mall, right? So it's again, it is such a complex situation where again it is heavily determined by the weather. As you know that I mentioned the weather is dynamic. So you will have different wind coming from different directions, and of course your building situations, and your orientations, and etc., right? So I must say that to achieve a really well integrated and functional development, I must say that we have to really look into the virtual environment. So there are there are many out there nowadays. So you have like ISVE, and a lot of modeling out there, be able to do the integrations. And just now, Mr. Siva, you mentioned about the collaboration, the integration. I think in a virtual environment also, we definitely that, right? Because nowadays it is more than one expertise, right? So you need a various expertise to come together to give their input, and in order to be able to predict or design a holistic development. So I'm definitely a strong believer of collaboration, and I think solo moving forward, it's not going to be easy. As also you can see that more and more companies, bigger companies, they are now providing more services and solutions, right? So definitely we need more than just one. Definitely we need various expertise and a collaborator in order to deliver an holistic development or design.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick. I think we need more information on that, and I will probably reach out to you. Thank you to all our panel members. Thank you to Oliver, Paul King, IR Dr. Megat Zohari, Ken Wong, and also Nick Chin. My closing thoughts on this build innovation is that Real innovation is not difficult. I think everyone have to somehow get into this innovation stuff. Number two is that it's a necessity, and collaboration is the key. That's what I take from this session. So with that, thank you so much. I'm passing over to Lailin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siva and fellow panelists. That was indeed a very interesting conversation, and it has certainly opened up a lot of discoveries in the implementation of new technologies in the Buildtech environment. So anybody who wants to invest in a 3D printer, wants to find out about an app that's applicable to your building developments, and wanting to know what else is JKR up to, then you should know who to message right now and keep in touch with them. So moving on, it is now ending our webinar today. We thank everyone for having taken the time to be with us this evening. We hope that we have provided a good platform to discuss important issues and topics that you have probably encountered in the world that is building technologies and its environments. Be sure to register today at Buildtech Asia to be a part of the discussion. Before we wrap up, do take a few seconds of your time to answer the poll that will now be flashed up. And if you have not answered the poll, do so in the next few seconds. I'm sure that you'll be able to click very simply to say whether you were happy or not happy. But I'm sure all of the speakers and panelists here would be very happy to stay in touch with you. And if any of you would like to get a hold of their contacts, just let us know, and we would then relay your information back to them. So have a great day, everyone. And since there are a few more days to go before Chinese New Year officially wraps up, here's a Rossen New Year as the water tiger becomes the driving force in the business world that is Buildtech. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.